And so now the Bears stand at 4-2, 4-2, right exactly where I predicted them to be coming into this point of the season. Coming into the bye week, I expected this Bears team to be 4-2. Now, obviously, I picked them to win every game because that's what I do, but doing our preseason predictions, I will admit, though, I did not have us losing to the Indianapolis Colts. Thought that Jacksonville was going to be a lot tougher than they ended up being. And it's funny because anytime you go out there and you do predictions ahead of time and you're like, oh, I had the Bears at 4-2. Like, no, you had the wrong game. I'm like, okay, the point of it was that the Bears were going to be above 500 going into their bye week. Many of you non-Bears fans who are here, like the Lions guy that loves to hang out, you all thought that they would be lucky to win 3 games this season. So I'm wondering, I need to go back through, and this is something that perhaps Greg and I will do at some point in the future. I want to start looking through some of the posts that I made with the Bears predictions and finding the people who thought the Bears were going to win 3 games, because there was a number of them. If they've not gone through and deleted them already, but a lot of times these people don't, I want to find them and wondering how they're dealing. Because I know a lot of the haters are in shambles because Caleb Williams is playing so well. And honestly, I can't wait to get started to talk about it. So, Sammy, let's go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois, the sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? It is time for Take It to the Rank. Greg Braggs will be joining us here in just a matter of moments, but still a few notes that I wanted to go over right quick before we get started. Some of the things we'll be talking about this week. Caleb, his continued progression over the last number of weeks continues to get better each and every time we see him on a football field. Obviously, we want to talk about Cole Kmet and his accomplishment as the special teams player of the week. I don't know. Is that a little disrespectful to some? Who knows? And then, of course, I want to talk about this too, and we'll get to this with Braggs, is the depth at the defense right now. When you think of all the players who were out, and yet the Bears still handled their business against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think there's a lot of stuff to be encouraged about. But before we get to that, I want to remind everybody that the world's largest sports book in Las Vegas is right at your fingertips in Illinois. The Circa Sports app is sports betting the way it should be. Bet anywhere in Illinois and experience high betting limits, better moneyline splits, more in-game betting, and the best customer service. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com and start betting like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. And if you or someone you know has a problem with gambling, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234. Circa Sports, sports betting the way it should be. All right, welcome to the show right now. He was over there in London for this momentous game, and was fun watching him online. Going to be even better to talk to him in person. Please welcome to the show, Greg Braggs, our guy. How are you? How are you living? How are you surviving right now? Are you jet lagged? What's going on with you?
No jet lag. No, I don't believe in jet lag. Maybe that's
I don't either. I don't either.
It's called being tired. You know, have you ever had a night where you didn't have sleep? So no, the sleep schedule, fine. I never sleep anyway. Obviously still recovering from a heavy week of partying in London, and certainly no complaints.
And France
as well. That was a little more dialed down because it was just my wife and I enjoying a nice two-day trip there. But London was crazy scene with all the Bears fans taking over that city, and worth every minute. And shout out to my guys over at CHGO Sports for giving me that opportunity because it was a once in a lifetime experience. But yeah, recovering. I'm watching the game back over before I jumped on with you, and I'm tweeting about it. I started laughing at myself. I'm like, I'm not saying people have moved on from it, but for me, I'm just now getting an opportunity to rewatch it on TV and try to see some of the things that I missed at the game. And so it was just kind of funny because I was like, well, that goes to show you how hard we went this week because it's Wednesday and that game was on Sunday.
Well, no, I think it's I usually watch it, if not Monday night, Tuesday night at the latest. Because we have a bye week, I've actually not gone back and rewatch. I've tried to watch a couple other games instead because I wanted to get ahead of the fantasy week and everything. So I'm still kind of going off my initial notes of everything that happened through the game and not even gotten to the All-22 or anything like that. But when you were watching it, I guess we'll start with Caleb right now.
Let's
listen. It's insane to me because, and I wish I could remember who tweeted this out today, but one of the benchmarks I think for Caleb is everything that's happened post CJ Stroud trying to sun him. Ever since that, he went out there and he threw for 300 against the Colts, beat the Rams, has been on this helped deliver the first 3-game winning streak in the Matt Eberflus era. As you're sitting there watching Caleb, what is the most impressive thing that's jumped out to you so far?
Well, I mean, Caleb Williams is who we thought he was. That to me is what we're now seeing. And, I understand Bears fans, seeing ghosts of failed past in the first couple games of the season. And I understand that there's been so many times that we've gone to training camp and watched Jay Cutler and Devin Hester have an amazing connection and then that not facilitate in the regular season, or seeing Mitch Trubisky slinging it all over the yard, in that 2018 season, and that, not necessarily being exactly the case, the entire season, even though they did make the playoffs, or Justin Fields, last year, playing mostly clean football at training camp last year, and that not always being the case when the regular season. At the end of the day, sometimes what we see at camp isn't always what happens during the regular season. But I'm sitting here going, man, my eyes didn't fool me. I know what I saw. We all saw it on Hard Knocks. We saw it in the preseason games. It wasn't just Bears fans hyping this up. It was national pundits and people that are really good at breaking down the film saying this dude is special. And then for it to start like it did, it threw everyone off, right? It started to remind you of all those promises that weren't kept and all that hype train that fizzled out. And now we're here, 6 games in, and Caleb Williams is who we thought he was. A guy that throws with amazing anticipation, a guy that has great touch and awareness, with the football in the pocket. And, just a guy that really commands the respect of defense, can run with the ball, has just a dynamic playmaker, and so many things that we saw at camp that were things that were just like, wow, this is different. We are now seeing in live time, in real time in the regular season. And for me as a Bears fan, that's all we've ever dreamed of. And to sit here and say, hey, well, we've only just begun and this is where it's at, 4 touchdown performance in London. I can't wait to see where this goes from here.
What was it like being in the stadium? And I know that you're emotional because you're friends with Cole Kmet. It's not like you just he's a casual look. Like, you're friends with him. You work with him. You're friends with him. But regardless of the fact that it was Cole Kmet who scored, the play design on the touchdown to Cole Kmet, I'm not going to lie to you, I think I nearly started crying. And I'll admit, the games out here in California start at 6:30 in the morning. And was I drinking a coffee porter that's 7% alcohol? I was, but I was literally, I just can't remember a time in my life where I've seen the Bears run a play like that actually, first of all, it worked, but just it was so nonchalantly good. What is happening? What was it like in the stadium? Did you kind of have the same experience?
Yeah, I mean, and this is, I think, why we are so simpatico, Adam, because, the day we met, I think we both knew, hey, we're both very, very alike. And so I'm not going to lie, there were moments in that game I got emotional. And Cole Kmet's second touchdown for me was that, because they really started to lay it on. And you could feel the momentum starting to become overwhelming for the
Was
Jags.
it the fake? Wait, the fake reverse, was that the first one or the second one?
Yeah, the fake reverse was the first one. So at that point, I was just completely jacked up because they had turned the tide. But then the second touchdown right before the half, it was just that.
Right.
That whole second quarter was just a display of offensive firepower and skill that we just aren't used to here in Chicago. And so for me, I certainly got emotional more than a few times just because to be able to be in the stands, obviously see a guy like Cole, who we're all very close with at CHGO Sports. He's in our studios every week, and we root really hard for this guy. And he is the quintessential Chicago Bear. He is one of the top leaders on this team. And, you know, he's a young guy. I'm almost 39 years old, and I'm not ashamed. It's not silly for me to say I'm really, really proud of that dude. I am. He has busted his ass to get to this point, and now he gets to kind of be the guy that, you know, reaps the benefits of the tough times that he's gone through here so far. And the Bears rewarded him with a big contract, and now he's being rewarded with a good team around him. So, yeah, there was definitely moments where it was just like, wow. But to your point about the play, you know, which we've seen a few teams run, it was a great play design, but it was the play before it that set it up. And somebody did say it on the timeline, so I apologize for not giving them additional credit to this, but they stacked plays there. They ran a screen where someone, I believe it was Keenan Allen, that motion right, they faked it, and then boop to Roshan Johnson, who was able to stay on his feet and get the first down. They come back to the line of scrimmage. Luckily, it wasn't reviewed to see if his knee was down because they had some momentum going. They get to the line of scrimmage. They basically run the same action. And then this time now they hit it up the middle for the dagger. Cole Kmet just buries that guy in the turf as he storms his way into the end zone. I mean, that was so cool. I mean, and Bears fans just flooded that whole stadium, and the eruption it was a euphoric scene the entire day there.
Yeah. What was the split like with the crowd? Because watching on the broadcast, it looked like a heavy populated Bears game.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even close. It was 90% Bears fans, not even close, which I fully anticipated, having been there in 2019 and watching this fan base take that stadium over. But when they did the national anthems for each country, you did see the overwhelming representation of Europe and Great Britain and London, and because they dominated the national anthem competition. They dominated it. And it was cool to see. It put chills down your back to watch them sing that song, the pride they have for their country. And so it is just very interesting to see, while you knew how many fans from internationally were there, but how many of them are Bears fans too. Because like I said, it was 90% Bears fans in that stadium, probably more than 2019, where I think there was a little more of an uptick of neutral fans. And you still saw that today. You saw Sunday, where you saw a lot of Packers fans. You saw a bunch of different teams out there. And it was kind of weird too, when you tried to give an international Packers fan crap, you know, just for being there. They're just so friendly. They're not, like I interviewed one on the side of the street. He's like, "Oh, I'm kind of rooting for the Bears." And I was like, "What?"
What?
I was like, "Oh, go ahead. Like, I'm not going to stop you. Thank you." But it was kind of like, you saw that a lot with Packer fans. You thought you were going to get like this nastiness and vitriol, and that's why they're there wearing all their Packers gear to mess with us. And for the most part, it wasn't like that at all. They were just excited to see a good football game, and the Bears put on a show for them, and I'm glad they did.
I know I've gotten a lot of heat for this and even saying it on this show and on the NFL Network, but I still don't care for that. If Liverpool and Chelsea were playing a Premier League game here in Los Angeles, I, number one, would not go to it. I, number two, would not wear any Arsenal kits. And I just wouldn't. No, I don't think it should be celebrated. So I'm sorry. I know that the international fans get on my case all the time.
Is it Arsenal that does this with a chant? No. Or is that a different side? Because we had some fans from over there trying to tell us to do a chant of one of their rival teams. And I thought it was Arsenal, but again,
no, I think that's although we haven't done that one. Wait, hold on.
Yeah. So he said, like, put the X up and yell something. Maybe it was Tottenham, but they told us to chant it when we were there, and then we forgot because I forgot what the exact chant was. But yeah. So it was, regardless, it was just an amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you could have started chanting everywhere we go. Stadiums are empty everywhere we go. Because usually when Arsenal goes someplace, they drive the hometown crowd out of the stadium because they're beating the home team so badly.
They certainly enjoyed doing the Green Bay sucks chant. So I think that resonated with them as probably fans over there where they really give the other team a hard time. And so there were more Green Bay sucks chants than usual. And that's because I think the international fans really don't get to do that much. For Bears fans, when you're at Soldier Field, there's a tradition when you walk through the tunnels that are around the stadium, whether it's mostly in the south as you're entering the south entrance, but there's a tunnel in the north by the north entrance too. And pretty much any tunnel by Soldier Field, if you're walking through with Bears fans, you're going to chant Green Bay sucks as per tradition. But typically during the game, you don't. And so that was one of the unique things was during the game, it busted out probably 5 or 6 times. And I think it was because international fans hadn't really had their opportunity to sing the song.
No, it's nice. And it's fun to have that kind of experience and to go through that. And so shout out to all our international fans, guys like Vernon Kay, a friend of mine who was out there going to these, because there's a large number of people and guys like Vernon Kay who became fans of the Bears because of the 85 Bears. And if you're a little bit younger, there's a large portion of the Bears who became fans of the Lovie Smith Bears and things like that. And the Bears in 86 went to London, one of the first teams to play internationally. They show that a lot on the broadcast. So there's going to be a heavy dose of that. And so, and again, I'm mildly teasing, but I've never in the United States been to a soccer match with a Premier League team that's not Arsenal. I've never done it and I will never do it. I can't say never because somebody might pay me to do it, but I've never paid money to go do it. We'll put it that way. But who cares? The thing of it though, I wanted to talk about Cole Kmet, but you're talking about stacking the plays like Shane Waldron, for all the people who are fans of the Seattle Seahawks who tried to tell us that Shane Waldron sucks. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the second coming of Ernie Zampese or anything like that. But I got to be honest with you. I've been impressed over the last 3 weeks where it just feels like even if like we go 3 and out and we went 3 and out the first, 2 drives, it's like, I feel like it's not because the play calling is like, get it together, guy. Like get it together. I'm more upset with the players. I don't feel like the offensive coordinator is being cumbersome or anything like that. And if anything, I feel like Shane Waldron's been calling a great game.
Yeah, well, I think there's this misconception where now I was putting out something right before the show started like, hey, where does the apology tour start for a litany of people, whether it's Waldron, Flus, Ryan Poles, Caleb Williams, Coleman Shelton, the offensive line, Chris Moore. I mean, when you're winning, no one complains, right? Yeah. But the hate needs to be, your praise needs to be just as loud as the hate, right? And so if you were overreacting early on when there was no definitive, you shouldn't have been making definitive statements after 2 games, then the same can be said at this point. Like, then be just as loud and obnoxious about the praise, even if you still shouldn't be making definitive statements. Nobody's crowning this team. They're not world beaters yet, but you have to admit as a Bears fan, or if you're someone that's critical of this team outside of the fan base, that there was a big overreaction about a lot of guys, and that's Shane Waldron included. Now, that also coincides with the news that came out that he didn't have a scripted 15 first plays the first 3 games of the year, and you're sitting there saying that's unique and probably not right, and probably a big reason why they had to have that leadership team meeting to have a little talk about that, and they fixed that, and there was some legitimate personnel questions that Shane Waldron, I mean, look at week 1, Gerald Everett out snapping.
So yeah,
that's the biggest example of him not doing right by the team. Now look at Cole Kmet, 2 touchdowns, and is one of the top leaders on this team. So, he needed a grace period to figure it out. And maybe you're the type that's saying, no, you got to figure it out right away. I wasn't one of those people. I'm not sitting here doing the I told you so tour. There's still a long season to go. But at the end of the day, I think we can all acknowledge that there was a bit of an overreaction and panic as the first 3 weeks of the season transpired, especially those first 2 where things were really ugly on both sides of the football.
Yeah. And it feels like there's a lot of scrambling going on because after the first 2 weeks of the season, everybody said like, we should have kept Justin Fields, Shane Waldron's a bum, right, all these other things that now Justin Fields isn't even starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Shane Waldron looks like he's got it going together. And again, but I think but you and I, the reason we don't go around being like, where is it? Wait, let's get out here and glaze Shane Waldron. We're still the same. We're still the same because like we didn't overreact when things went bad.
Right.
We're not going to overreact when things go well. What I would like to see is what's going to happen the next time adversity strikes this team, which it's going to happen at some point, as well as it's going right now. We know that at some point during this season, whether it's next week against the Commanders, probably not against Arizona or New England, but still, or at home when we finally get to face Green Bay and start going through the NFC North things, I think it's fair to say like, yeah, let's see what happens when, the Packers if the Packers get up or if the Commanders get up on us or whatever, how they react. But I think my issue is kind of what you're saying is if you were ready to write off Caleb Williams after 2 weeks, then you should try to put him in the Hall of Fame right now.
Right. Because they're both just as ridiculous statements.
Yeah.
So, and I think when you talk about, let's see how they do against adversity, I think it's more so, let's see how they do with adversity against better teams, because now the cliche statement is that they haven't played anybody. And that is a fair statement. And, they only can play who are on their schedule, but the Rams are no pushover, despite the fact that they have had injuries that we all acknowledge. Then you've got the Panthers, who we all understand is a bad football team, and they didn't play with their food. They dominated them as a good team would against a team like that. So they shouldn't be discredited. If they barely beat them, then I can see your argument. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a bad record, but I think Trevor Lawrence is a pretty good quarterback. He had 4 drop touchdowns in that game. I'm not faulting Trevor Lawrence for that. I think overall, I think Trevor did everything he possibly could. And then their defensive line for Jacksonville is no pushover. And so to me, there was a moment of adversity in that game where Caleb Williams looks like he's about to hit a touchdown to DJ Moore. It gets picked off. You're watching the replay. You're like, oh, that was an ugly. At first, it looked like a beautiful play. Then it turns out it's an ugly throw because it's late, probably a little too much loft on it. And what do the Bears do? This sequence to me, after just rewatching it, and I was paying attention during the game because I said it as soon as the interception happened. Watch Roschon Johnson, specifically if you get the all-22 view of it, and see the key tackle as he rallies to the football off the interception and makes a tackle. If he does not make that tackle, the DB has a lot of room to run and probably switches the field. And then on that next down series for the Bears defense, they get a 3-and-out where Kyler Gordon makes a tackle on 3rd and 5, where he's getting essentially blocked in the back, where he's basically blocked up, and he still finds a way to get the tackle, get the defense off the field. And then what does Caleb Williams do? They have 4 minutes left in the half. And that's where I'm telling you, Adam, where I started to get emotional, because that was a good football team. They made a mistake. Good teams make mistakes. But what do they do off of those mistakes? They respond, and they turn around, flip the field, flip the momentum back in their direction, went down, made smart plays. Caleb Williams taking off on the run, showing toughness where he's like trying to run a dude over into the end zone. Don't want him doing too much of that, but appreciate the mentality in there. DeAndre Swift finishing runs with authority. Then you get down into the red zone and you make this easy pitch and catch to Kmet. It looks easy on TV, but the read was beautiful by Caleb Williams. And that's where, for me, it just put chills. It puts chills down my spine right now, because I'm like, man, I have been waiting my whole life for this. They have a good football team. They have a good quarterback, and this team isn't going anywhere for years to come.
And that was one of the things that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, where I would love to see more 3-and-outs. And I know that this is a bend and don't break type of team, and that's the way the defense is constructed. But you also want to see 3-and-outs every once in a while. Like, hey, it would be nice. That was the thing outside. So when talking about that play, number one, the first touchdown to Kmet, but really that whole sequence that you just described is everything that we've always wanted to see out of our football team. It's one of the things that when you watch the New England Patriots back in the day, and Tom Brady would make mistakes. Tom Brady would throw interceptions. He'd get caught off every once in a while. He wouldn't go out there, though, and bury his receiver or do anything like that and just go out there and wear it. And then they would just respond. And that's exactly what the Bears did. And not only that, but like getting the ball with 4 minutes left and being confident of the team scoring. almost to the point of like, I hope I want a 4-minute drive here and having it feel realistic. And again, I never want to come off as bashing Justin Fields or anything like that. But like, there was never like, whenever we had Justin at quarterback, it always felt like he could pop a play at any time. So you're like, this will be a thing where like, we'll score with like, he'll score in like 20 seconds or whatever. Not that it's a bad thing, but I think having that ability to just hold on to the football to the point we were talking about it when we were watching the game of like, you know what? I would take 3 points and not giving the ball back, over like scoring within 30 seconds. Cause I don't want the defense to go back out. Not that I don't have confidence in the defense, but I just wanted to see more, like, I want to see what those good teams do is just not I guess annoying football is the way to put it, where it's like, God, like they're good. We can't get the ball back from them. And we know that our chances are limited because the defense is good and we're not getting a chance to get the ball. And then we got the best of both worlds because they didn't settle for a field goal. They went out there and scored the touchdown.
Right.
So now you're looking at, and again, it's just like, and I know that everybody wants to just dismiss it because it's the Jags, but so many people, this is a thing that I don't know if you noticed it when you were out there. So many people out here were talking about this being a potential trap game. And we started hearing it way too much. And even Bears fans who were like, this feels like a trap game. And I'm like, it doesn't. Like, I even said this coming into the season. This was the game that I was worried about because Jacksonville has history in London, knows what they're doing when they're going out there, a long history, fan base is already embedded out there, all that stuff. Like, nobody was overlooking this to the point like you should feel like it's a trap game, but it's just a game that's but Jacksonville's a formidable opponent, especially over there in London, to the point that the line got flipped. The line went to Jacksonville being the favorite by a point and a half. And I just saw somebody on TikTok, and it's obviously a couple days old, some dude in an ASU shirt going, I think it was at the Westgate or something, putting money on Jacksonville, still going to the rap of like, Caleb cares more about painting his fingernails. I'm like, oh my God, are people still talking about this? And the Bears just going out there, but just handling their business like good teams do. And It's such a refreshing change for anybody who's watched this team for quite some time.
Well, you know what I think it is, and I'm still at this point as a fan, like people ask me like, what do you think of the game? Right before the game starts, sitting there tailgating. And, the last few weeks, the Rams game, the Panthers game, the Jags game, nobody's really sitting here with this supreme confidence that they're going to win. You're like, well, they should win. That's the statement. Not, we're going to dominate. You're not, it's been a long time since I felt that way as a Bears fan. Now, in 2018, where they really started to hit their stride and the momentum was just out of control with Club Dub and the energy that team played with, you started to go into some games like, okay, Minnesota's coming to our house on primetime. We're going to dominate Kirk Cousins. Let's go. Bring it on. But, bring the Rams here on primetime. It's cold out. You ain't going to like this, Jared Goff, And so there was some fleeting moments, but it hasn't been since the Lovey days that a team for a 10-year period, you knew what you were getting from them every week. Were they the best team in football? Maybe not, but that you knew what those teams would do. And especially against bad teams. So much so that I always knew when I used to only go to one game a year because that's all I could afford, I knew which game to identify. Like, hey, I'm going to go to this game because I know they'll win. And that's for me when I'm only paying to go to one game, I want them to win. As much as I like to go to the toughest game, sometimes tickets can be a lot of money. So at the end of the day, I don't want to leave the stadium upset. And so, now we're at a place where there's just still this uncertainty. But the more they win like this against lesser teams, the more trust they'll have. But Washington coming up, I don't think anybody's going to be sitting there like, oh, they're going to dominate. Arizona on the road, same thing. They still got to earn that role. Now, if they win the next couple, and now it is starting to turn into a little bit of 2018 is because you're starting to see this where, think about those first 3 games and how the players are, saying certain things through the media, and there's a lot of finger pointing going on and reveals of team meetings and all this stuff. Well, now they've won, these last 3 games, and all you're hearing is, how excited they are to play with each other and how they're growing together, and everybody's just complimenting each other. They win the next 2 out the gate. They beat Washington. They beat Arizona. this team it's going to be like a snowball that I don't think most NFL fans realize what will happen. I've seen this many a times here in Chicago, and man, then you'd get to a Patriots game where then probably most people at home at the tailgate at the corner of Wabash and Cermak are like, we're going to dominate this team today, but they're not there yet. They just aren't. I'm excited for when they get there, but there's still this, you don't want to say it because you almost don't want to jinx it.
No, for sure. And, it'll be interesting too, because I'm going to be watching the Carolina game this week with the Commanders because we need the Commanders to win because we don't want the Commanders limping in with a 2-game losing skid or anything like that. We want them because we keep catching all these teams off of wins. Like the Rams were coming off a win, the Jags were coming off a win. Like, okay, that's cool. Not that it makes that much of a difference, but still, like having that sort of momentum going, I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to get to that point. And that's the cool thing about having this bye week is that I think we do need a little bit of a breath to just sit here and enjoy everything that's been going on because it has been, a long time for this to come together, and we're starting to see a little bit of it. And again, we're not Dennis Green, we're not crowning anybody yet. We're not saying we're back to our Lovie Smith days or anything like that. Not even the highlights of the Matt Nagy era. But at the same time, this is a team that's playing very well. And I guess we need to start giving maybe a little credit to Matt Eberflus because coming into this one, we were like, he's never won 3 consecutive games. This was a big thing. It was a big statement for me. And I don't know if it was on this, if we were saying this or if I was saying this on Friday with James Coe, but I was saying like Matt Eberflus, like you're not going to lose your job if you don't win this game. But if you really want to start like gaining the trust of the Bears fan base, and maybe people will stop backing off of the why didn't we hire an offensive minded head coach, you go out and win a game like this that could have been considered a trap game that you could have easily been like, well, Jacksonville's done this before. So it's understand like we're getting rid of those kind of excuses and now going out and winning the games that we should be winning. Again, we're not going to crown him. We don't need a victory tour. We don't need apologies. But it feels like Matt Eberflus is now starting to earn the trust of the Bears fans a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we all know last year on our post-game shows, the CSU Bears, I probably fired him 6 times. And then in the offseason, right, when they were trying to make that decision, Jim Harbaugh, what do you do? I was trying to kick him out of town. And at the end of the day, when Ryan Poles decided to run it back with him, revamp the whole offensive coaching staff, I said, hey, trust Ryan Poles. But Matt Eberflus still had a lot of proving to do for me. I gave him his due credit for how he handled the offseason. I thought he did well at training camp. From my eyes, it looked like they were properly developing Caleb Williams. And now you get into the regular season, and the defense is just flying around, man. They are so good. So good. And he's not perfect. He's made a few timeout errors, review errors, but then you see him on the sidelines at the London game where Caleb's sprinting down the sidelines, tries to run a dude over, and there's Matt Eberflus running right behind him, ready to call the timeout as his headphones are falling off. So he's understanding, okay, I messed up here on that 2-point conversion a few weeks ago. I wasn't ready. And there's been a few times where I should have called a timeout, maybe on the goal line when they did that stupid pitch against the Colts, call a timeout. And so now he's, improving off of his mistakes. But at the end of the day, you see, I've said this for 2-3 years now. Look at how he's developed this defense. You can talk about how he is as a game manager, how he calls a game, but you have to acknowledge how much he's developed this team. Look at Gervon Dexter. Look at the 2 the DBs that come in off.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Josh Blackwell. This is a guy that's been here for 3 years. He was scrappy a couple years ago when the Bears were the worst team in football. Elijah Hicks coming in off relief. There's so many guys that have developed under Matt Eberflus now. Then you add in the fact you bring in some extremely good talent with a guy like Montez Sweat. Look at how he challenged Jalen Johnson when he first got here. Might have looked at that sideways. I'm sure Jalen did a little bit too, but guess what? Now Jalen Johnson is the best quarterback in football. And that's good coaching. That's developing guys. This guy's good. I'm challenging you to be great, Jalen Johnson. And so Matt Eberflus deserves a ton of credit for how he's developed this team. And now this is a defense that's really tough to score on.
Yeah, and I do want to. I want to circle back to something you said too when you were talking about Trevor Lawrence and how well I thought Trevor Lawrence made some nice throws. I know that people are saying, and I'll allow you to go back and watch the game a little bit more, that hey, they dropped all these touchdowns against the Bears. I honestly think the Bears were in pretty good positions, and if a player didn't get a hand on the ball, I think that when you're such a nuisance to players defensively, that even if you're not physically knocking the ball out of the air, if you've been out there sucking the will out of them, like taking the air out of them, I think that plays with them, which is why you end up dropping. Even if it was a drop, I think a couple of them were tipped.
It's called rallying to the football. You know,
Yeah.
TJ, the drop in the end zone on the first drive where Jacksonville's trying to break our spirits, they have like 15 plays. They get in there. TJ Edwards is rallying to the pass and puts his hand. It's like a windmill. Yeah, you can putt it with no windmill. Put the windmill in front of you. It's a little harder to make that catch. Then Elijah Hicks finishes the play and knocks the ball loose. So rallying to the football. TJ Edwards on the fumble to start the second half. That's a completed 20-yard catch. They're flipping the field. TJ Edwards rallying to football, peanut punch, Lance Briggs type of pursuit on the ball. Somebody said it here in the chat. You know this team, Illinois Jones. You watch this defense play. You know this team is well coached, and I completely agree with that statement.
Yeah, that is a huge issue when you start playing with that type of intensity. Guys are dropping the football because they're concerned about who's going to hit them. Where's the pressure coming from? Again, the whole notion of like we're seeing ghosts out here. The Bears defense has now put that into the mind of players who go out there and play, and it affects you when you need to when you need to catch a football. If you're sitting there worried about somebody coming out of nowhere and striking you, your concentration might drop. It's not the fact that you're not a good player or why are they playing this poorly? Like, well, you know what? Sometimes the defense has exerted their will over you. Yep. And you've already been over. You can see it. Like when you can see it too, when players are like not defeated, but are starting to wear what the other team is doing to them. Like there is something about that. It's like it happens in all sports too.
Well, to your point, when you talk about rallying to the football, go watch that first Cole Kmet touchdown again, where they do the fake screens, Cole Kmet up the seam. 33 is jogging, not running, not pursuing like TJ Edwards, because he assumes the guy that's ahead of Cole Kmet's going to make the tackle. Then Cole Kmet trucks him. And if 33 had kept his effort up, he probably gets the backside tackle and stops him around the 10-yard line. Instead, he's a spectator like I'm in the stands chugging down a beer. He might as well have been sitting next to me on that play. So that's coaching, to coach effort and not assume, hey, this guy's going to make the tackle. Hey, I'm going to be here just in case because I got my teammates back. And in the moment, that's the beginning of the game. Your spirit shouldn't even be broken at that point. But those are things that, as much as you think as somebody that's a blue-collar guy, like, well, I'd have that attitude on every play, you still need to be consistently reminded to have that mentality and approach. When you kind of get lost in the shuffle of your work habits every day, and if those things aren't consistently, preached to you and reminded of you where it's ingrained in your mind every time a play is made, you're going to slip up every once in a while. And it's not really a knock against any particular player's character. It's just more of one of those things about mentality of coaching. And we're used to that here in Chicago because Lovie Smith was the exact same way. Matt Eberflus is showing that he has some similarities in that regard, at least with hustling to the football.
Now, I've really appreciated everything that Matt has been doing. And again, not to take it down to the micro level, but like coaching children is trying to get out those precepts of like, don't be a just the phrases that you use with kids, like, don't be a spectator, like go out there, be moving, always be moving. You always want to be out there like the amoeba. You're always moving. And also like trying to lead, like whenever a girl or one of the boys is like dribbling with a ball and you're like, relieve them of that ball. Like just relieve them of that ball, win the battle. These little things like, and I love what Matt Eberflus does with like, I know that people think it's corny to be like loafs and all these other things, but like those kind of things stick and you can kind of just start getting that into their vernacular and they remember it, and like the girls, I love it when the girls start mocking me by saying these things like with pace, like all this stuff. And it's like, I know it's coming off like in a mocking fashion, but it's ingrained in them. They know it. They know what the expectation is. And this Bears defense knows what their expectation is not giving up and always going out there and trying to make a play and doing whatever you can. And you can see, like, I think it was Edmonds missed a play that you could tell it really bothered him. Like he was crushed. There was a pass to this side of the field, and you could see like he wasn't like pouting. He wasn't giving up. But you could tell like he was and you watch sports long enough, you can recognize when the player's doing this. He was like, oh, I should have had that. Like you see that, like you see the expectation level that he had. And so you watch this and you watch this and you're like, okay, like, oh, he should have made that play. Like he knows he should have made that play and he's upset about it. He's not but he's not pouting. He's got his body language is, I'll get that play the next time. Not like I'm doing all this stuff. And so it's great. And it does harken back to all the times of these great players that you were talking about, the guys that you work with at CHGO. When you think about Lance Briggs and Urlacher and all those guys and Peanut Tillman and all the things. And now I'm enthused to go back and purchase their trading cards. And speaking of trading cards, at Windy City Sports Cards, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you are a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, or Sky, they've got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles. In addition to their Chicago-focused items, they also have a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players. So check out Windy City Sports Cards. They are the absolute best. And the next time that we have a Tyler Scott show, we will be sitting there. We will be giving away one of the cards. I don't know if you saw this. We had on the last edition of the Tyler Scott show, we did a box break. And contrary to one guy, Tyler Scott loves trading cards. So he wants to break down cards and everything. We had Roma Dunze on. I gave Roma Dunze the chance to bounce. I'm like, Rome, you don't have to stick around for this if you don't want to. He's sitting there in London, a young man in London. His lady wasn't there yet, but still, he's like, no, I'll stick around for it. He even lost internet connection, to which I would have thought like, that's his way of like, hey, I lost internet connection. I'm out of He came back to do it. Him and Tyler were fighting over a Lamar Jackson card, which was amazing. That's great. That's the thing, Scottish Bear. Like so the next time we talk to Tyler, we're going to settle this because it was very much up in the air because we had set some goals for Roma Dunze to meet in order to get that Lamar Jackson card. It's on its way to me right now. By the way, I got the Cole Kmet card because we pulled a Cole Kmet card, an auto. Cool. And I'm like, I chose it over the Urlacher. And I thought that was present. And so I'll be going to Arizona with that Lamar Jackson card. I'm going to see which one of those guys gets it. So I don't know who did it, but in any event, do we have any questions though, Sammy? I know that we've been talking a lot. Just want to make sure. Ron wants to know, do you think Caleb will be the first Bears quarterback to throw over 4,000 yards? I know the second half of the season gets a little bit daunting. I don't want to put 4,000 yards on him, but I think that if he continues to play the way I don't know about you, Greg, but I don't care if he goes for 4,000. That statistic means nothing to me as much as proving that he is the quarterback one and getting the Bears double-digit wins.
Yeah, I mean, if the question is, do we think that he's going to throw for 4,000 yards in his career? Yes. Do we think it's going to happen this year? Probably not. And I think the reason for that is obviously the slow start, put them behind the trajectory. Now, a couple 400-yard games can put you right on pace again, but we don't get greedy here in Chicago. We'll take what we get, and certainly last game's production is more than enough for any of us as fans. So to me, because they're trying to cross this road between developing Caleb and winning games, I think he'll fall just short of that.
Yeah, I don't like putting that number on him. Although, and it was this thing too, like he didn't get the 5 touchdowns because DJ Moore was tackled at the foot line. Such a bummer. Like, you know what? Again, it's funny because I don't want to be in this thing about like worried about the numbers, but a small selfish part of me wanted that to be a touchdown because I wanted to have 5 touchdowns.
Exactly.
I wanted to stop the Jaden Daniels stuff, which I know will never stop.
I was the same way, Adam. We've gone from, like I said, this team is night and day from week 1 to week 6. And it's like week 1, I would have taken any kind of touchdown. I don't care who it was or how they did it. I'd take any win, how we could get it. And then week 6, I was mad that DJ Moore didn't get in the end zone because we all wanted to say a 5 touchdown performance. And obviously I feel like you pointed this out, Adam, with DeAndre Swift having a lot of touchdowns vultured from him last year, with Jalen Hurts and the tush push. And then he's had a couple this year where it was the same thing. And he's even shown some frustration where he gets down to the 1 and then they bring Roshan in. And so I think Eberflus has a couple times given DeAndre Swift the ball on the goal line to reward your guy, your top dog there. And so I do think there is some of that. You obviously are just calling plays to win games, but you got to consider doing right by your players as well. And so, but yes, I was definitely disappointed. I wanted the 5 touchdowns, and that is definitely a sign that we're starting to get greedy here in Chicago because we want to be able to say cool things like Caleb Williams just threw 5 touchdowns in London. Beat that.
But at the same time, as much as I wanted that for them, sitting here and by the way, and shout out to Rip Beer Company in Huntington Beach, California. We not only got them to open it up early, and the guy who does it is a guy named Skip. He's like, okay, I'll open up early for you. And we thought it was going to be Skip, Travis, the valet, and my friend Sean. We thought we were going to be the only guys. And then eventually, the fam would have came down.
What time is this?
Yeah, 6:30 a.m., 6:30 in the morning. So thanks for asking, BJ. So we were
now was 6:30 kickoff or
6:30 a.m. kickoff.
So they had to open a little before 6:30 to get you guys in, right?
Barely. Like Skip came tearing in his truck. It was about 6:22. So this is like the drinking hours in California are closed from 2 to 6. There are some bars in like Long Beach or whatever that are open up at 6 a.m. And it's funny because people go, who are the alcoholics who do that? I'm like, there's people who work graveyards and they want, like, there's a place called the Reno Room in Long Beach. It's right down the street from the hospital. So a lot of the doctors that are getting off at 6 a.m. want to go out, or, first responders or anybody like that who wants to go out in there and have a drink after their shift, like a normal person. You want to be open to them at 6 a.m. My sister works graveyard. So it's like, she knows that kind of stuff. So he comes tearing in at 6:22. And so we get the place open and and there are people there. So my friend Sean was there. And then there was another guy who's a Vikings fan who's always there. But we had Bears fans show up. We had people who just wanted to be a part of the experience of being in a bar, watching a game at 6:30 in the morning, whether it was the Bears or not. They showed up. So it was fun. It was packed. So it was actually more packed for a 6:30 kickoff than it normally is for a 10 a.m. kickoff, because so many people wanted to show up and show out and do all that stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And obviously when the team's winning, it's just amazing. So we had a good time with that, and it was fun to go out there and do it. But we were saying, too, like, so, we're sitting there having a good time enjoying this. When DJ got tackled at the foot line, like, it was so close. Like, watching it, like I didn't celebrate because I'm like, God, it was close enough. They're gonna look, and we know how this goes. Like, everything's so whatever. I guess he's down. Okay, like, it was the correct call to say he was down. I was like, I really wish this was a touchdown pass because I would want it. I know at the point we didn't know he was going to end up with 5. But then at the same time, you're like, don't be stupid. Like, I want to get DJ a touchdown as much as the next guy. Run the ball in. We've been very good on these goal line plays. Like, put Kramer in the backfield and then just run it in. Like, please don't screw around with this. And it was such a relief. Now, in hindsight, to sit here and be like, hey, I wanted 5 touchdowns. In the moment, it was the correct play. And I think, again, that just goes to the leadership of this team, like doing the right thing and not trying to be like, well, let's be cute, try to have Caleb do something. Don't do it that way. Just go out there and take care of business.
100%.
What about another question there, Sammy? Question for Braggs. What was the feeling in the stands when there wasn't a challenge on the Jacksonville reception that was obviously down on the turf? Did they show that on the stadium replay? Who was that? Was that Brian Thomas Jr.? Who dropped it?
I think maybe he's referring to where there was that catch, like that little
Travis
dump
Etienne?
off. Yeah, where the dump off and
or not him, but Tank Bigsby.
Right, where the catch was like right at the ground. See, the thing that was a little weird about being at the game was the replay. They had like 4 big boards, but the every time they'd show a replay, they basically zoomed in on the pocket and the quarterback, and then like the catch they'd zoom out. So when they replayed things, a lot of times, like I wanted to see what the coverage looked like, and you couldn't really see that. So in that moment when they made the play, there was a lot of people saying challenge it, but I couldn't say with certainty. I think that one and the Roma Dunze face mask, that was probably the bigger eruption. People thought that there should have been a flag there. It turned out, watching it back, it doesn't seem like that was the case, but at the stadium it certainly looked like it. So I wouldn't say it was overwhelming, but I wouldn't have blamed Flus if he had challenged that one for sure.
Do you think he's a little gun shy right now? Do you think he's like he's got to feel himself when it comes to the challenges?
Well, I think it's also about you got to keep those in your pocket situationally too. And is this one of the 2 most important calls of the game? And if they don't meet that that prerequisite, then you probably should just keep it in your pocket, because there may be something that happens later in the game. Not to mention, if you're wrong, then you're burning a timeout, which you also might need. So to me, that's part of the thought process that you should have as a coach, is you need to ask yourself in that moment, is this one of the 2 most important plays of the game? And if it doesn't, then just keep it in your pocket.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. I was like, probably. Like, there were some other things too where you're like, but at the same time, I have such confidence in this defense that sometimes, if it's not going to result, not overturn a touch. I'm not, obviously those plays are overturned, but if it's a big pop play or anything like that, I'm content. I would rather have him err on the side of caution than what he did a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, bro, this isn't even close. Like, what are we doing? One of the best challenges I ever saw was actually, ironically enough, it was by Mike Martz. That there was a play years ago when he was coaching the Rams, and it was an obvious like he fumbled type of situation. This is before like every turnover was automatically reviewed. And Mike Martz called a challenge. And the whole reason he called the challenge was to get the Superdome to be quiet, because the crowd erupted and went crazy, and it's the Superdome. So he called a challenge, and then like the 5 minutes it takes to look at something, the crowd just lost their momentum. And the Rams were able to come out and stop them or hold them to a field goal or something like that. I remember asking him about that when he used to come into the NFL Network. And then after I buttered him up with a question like that, I'm like, how could you get rid of Greg Olsen? How did he not fit your offense, sir? I never had the balls to ask him that. I would have loved to. I think where I was in my place with the NFL Network back then, I had no guts. I wasn't at a place where I felt like I could get away with that. Whereas now I think I could be like, absolute, like you would go on expecting to be asked that question. Like, what happened? I would actually tell him in the meeting, like, I'm going to ask you about Greg Olsen, because I'm sure he's got a dumb answer for it. And I'd be like, yeah, none of that tracks with me, unless you just want to admit that you're wrong, which is fine. Go out there and admit it. How about another question though? Is Cole a top 10 tight end in this league? Scottish Bear, thank you again for the question. I'm going to say this before you jump in, Braggs. I'm going to say something highly controversial, and you might not like this, and Bears fans might not like this, and you're just going to have to sit here and wear it and listen to my explanation. I think that he is. I think he is a top 5 tight end, because too often, and we see this because of what I do for a living, with the fantasy football, and people look at tight ends who score fantasy points in a much different light than actual guys who go out there and do the work. It's part of the and I don't let my daughter hear me say this. So keep this between everybody. Be cool. Everybody be cool with this. But it's hilarious to me when people try to go out there and have these conversations about, hey, who's better, Travis Kelce or George Kittle? And I'm like, is this a real question? Like, how is this even a question? What are you talking about? Like, if you ever decided to run George Kittle in an offense like Travis Kelce has run, he would have 2,000 receiving yards. He has that ability. George Kittle is a football player who does stuff in all phases of the game. Cole Kmet is of similar ilk, where I don't know, Corey Wooten was comparing him to Kyle Rudolph, and I didn't want to cut off Corey Wooten. He was cooking. I'm like, bro, he's sort of like our George Kittle, and almost to the point of like, I want to have a real conversation of who's better. I really do, and I'm not even BSing about this. I would say that, and people would lose their minds if I'm about what I'm about to say. It's like, I think he's better than Kelce. Like, he is. He's a better player than like he is, because he does everything. Hey, when Travis Kelce is a long snapper as well, then I'll have this conversation. But when it comes to a guy who plays football, and I know that there's been people who were critical of him getting that huge contract extension, but we didn't see everything that we've seen right now. And now you look back at that contract and you're like, that's a deal. That is a steal of a contract.
Yep.
So I would say absolutely. If you don't think that Cole Kmet is a top, I would like to know the 5 tight ends that you put above him. I would really, and I know that people will come out. What about Brock? What about Brock Bowers? Okay, Brock Bowers doesn't block. He plays. He's a tall slot receiver. Cole Kmet does everything. He does everything. He's a top 5 tight end.
Yeah, he's definitely a top 5 tight end. He is fighting to be one of the, like, in the top 3, top 2. You know, obviously resumes. If you're just going to go off of that, other tight ends have better resumes. But when you consider how productive he's been the last few years in an offense that struggled at times to score or move the football, he's already been one of the most productive. Now this year, he's upped his game. He's creating some even better separation than he's shown before. He's got great hands. I don't think he's dropped a pass all year. We were joking in the preseason because he dropped one in the preseason, but he hasn't dropped one in like 3 years. And I was giving him crap about the one drop he had. And, but it's like tongue in cheek. He never drops the ball, it's one of those things where I feel like I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a list of all the things that I want Cole to apologize for when he comes to the studio. I'm just messing with him. We all love Cole Kmet, and we're lucky that he's a Chicago Bear. But and then you see the game he had. He's he's extremely smart. He's a great blocker, great catch. He's starting to get a little more speed behind him. So there, no argument for me. He's one of the best tight ends in football, but I'll leave others to play the ranking game. And when you consider leadership, he's right there with Travis Kelce and George Kittle. And you see the impact those 2 players have had for their teams and their franchises. And I think Cole Kmet, arguably, and this is no disrespect to anybody else on that team, but I would, at this point now, rank Cole Kmet as the top leader on the Chicago Bears.
That seems fair. I get all that, and it's baffling. I mean, surprising that he
plays hurt. He's played every single week as a Chicago Bear, and trust me, there were weeks where he probably could have taken the week off, and nobody on that team would have blamed him. But he makes a point. It's one of the things he's talked about on our show, that he takes a lot of pride in that streak, not because he's trying to be like Lou Gehrig, because he wants to lead by example and make sure that he's out there every week so his team can depend on him. And if you saw at the end of last year, he was hurt pretty bad, but he still went out there and played even when the season wasn't exactly like, that they weren't 100% in the playoffs or anything like that, but he still fought his way to get out there and did everything he could to show his team that he's got their back.
Lou Gehrig over Cal Ripken. Interesting. All right.
I forgot about that.
It makes sense. No. It's an observation. But I will take some time.
Shows my age, right? Shows my age.
Right. No, it shows your age. Yeah, you're around when Lou Gehrig was.
No,
playing.
I'm saying like because before Cal broke it, that's all they
I
talked
know.
about was Lou Gehrig. So
The Iron Man. I know.
Do kids even know who Lou Gehrig is?
No, nobody knows who Lou Gehrig is. I was sitting there trying to describe to people today. I was talking about the television show Dinosaurs, and these parents. There's one dad who's my age who gets it, but all these other parents are like, "Yeah, dinosaurs. Like, what was this?" I'm like, "Well, how old were you in the '90s? Like 4?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you wouldn't remember Dinosaurs. Great show. You should go check it out." But it's funny to me. I will sit here and I will go out and I will, you know what? I'm interested now. I will the next time we come back. So it'll be either we'll either have Tyler Scott in later this week. We're gonna do sick picks at some point. I know that we barely get you to condescend to come on one time a week. I might need you to come in and do some sick picks once, just to come in and pick some games. I think you'd have a good time. I know you're very busy.
Anytime you need me.
No.
I am very busy.
You're very busy.
Only for stupid things like talking about sports every day. So I am happy to come on whenever you need me, sir.
Did I have to go and carry Corey Wooten for 2 weeks?
Exactly. And I meant to start the show with this because I really appreciate you going on. And I'm let me overcook the ham here for a minute because it was cool of you guys, and Joey Christopoulos did a great job running the ship or driving the car, and you guys kept the ship afloat while I was floating down the river having one too many drinks. So I really appreciate you guys holding it down, and it's obviously no better time to be talking Bears right now, so let's take full advantage. But I do really appreciate it, and it's just cool to know how much that you're invested in what I'm doing and what we're doing at CHGO Bears, and that I'm very invested in anything you bring me on. So anytime you need me, my good man, I will be there.
Right. We might hit you up for that one of these times, but it was fun being on with you. Jay's almost a little too handsome to be like, I don't know if I want to go on, but it was cool. But again, it's always fun to have the forbidden door open because Jay does a great job with Believe and all that stuff, and CHGO and the Sick Podcast Network coming together to do a great show. CHGO After Dark. We kept that going on Monday nights. It's always a lot of fun. I actually really love it. I mean, it's a great time because I usually do to pull back the curtain. I record the Rogers Sportsnet stuff that I do on Mondays. So I button it up. It's a fun hour for me to go out there and talk sports and do all that stuff. And it's great to come out and talk about the Chicago Bears as well. And I think the next time I come out, I will sit down and I will start to chart out who are the best tight ends in football right now. I actually, to be fair to Brock Bowers, I have to go back and watch his blocking a little bit more. I don't want to be dismissive of him. I know Travis Kelce does not block. No. I love Travis Kelce's a Hall of Famer. Don't get it twisted. Travis Kelce's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest, but he's also he does a very specific thing. It's one of the things that we always talk about whenever we talk about Rob Gronkowski is he never gets the credit for being the blocker that he was, which is why I thought that Rob Gronkowski was the best tight end when he was playing because he blocked so much and he was such a big part of that offense in other ways outside of just catching the football. And again, if you wanted to use Gronk as a glorified slot receiver, he could have done that as well and probably would have extended his career. So He went out there and sold himself out for multiple Super Bowls with 2 different franchises. And I think Cole Kmet's of the same ilk. And I'm sure there's people losing their minds. Like he's not, whatever. I think that he's proven his contract. And I think that you can move on. If you did not agree with the contract extension, I hope that you've changed your mind by now is my big thing. But listen, shoot. Okay. We've been going on for a while. Let's close this off. Do you have any final remarks about London? Anything else? Any other shout outs? But by the way, all of you guys for CHGO did such a wonderful job out there. It was fun being along the ride, being along for the ride with you guys. Looked like you were having the time of your lives, and you should have. You deserve it too. Like that was the thing. Like it was super easy for us to come in and keep the shows going because you deserve that opportunity to go out there and enjoy this Bears time. But anything else you wanted to add before we sign off here for the evening?
No, obviously this is a fun time to be a Bears fan, so I just encourage all Bears fans to embrace it. We've waited a long time to have fun watching our team play week to week, to look forward and not dread what we think the quarterback will or won't be week to week. And now we're in a place that is kind of uncharted territory with the potential for what this team can be this year, for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. So it's okay to dream. It's okay to get excited. And eyes on Washington. That's going to be an amazing game, flexed into 325. And that's why the whole national audience knows as well. This is Bears are becoming prime time again. And it's been a few years since there was some serious playoff relevancy. And now here we are. So enjoy it. I'm going to take this Sunday to sit back on the couch and laugh at every other fan base that has to stress through a Sunday. And now we get to, have a little fun and relax and look forward to a big game against Washington here coming up in about 10 days or so.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks to everybody for being here this evening. Big thanks to Braggs and, of course, everybody behind the scenes. Sammy, of course, pulling the strings, Juliana back there as well. Thank you so much to everybody. We will be back later this week with the sick picks. Until that time, bear down, and Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois.